So with that in mind, I had kind of made a couple changes to a previous presentation that we used to run. Alexis and I would put together, and several other really great people here in the city of Las Cruces would put together a phenomenal boot camp. Okay, it's part of a larger program, a larger class that we condensed it and made it into two parts, a morning and an afternoon, two different presentations so that we can give caregivers all the information they need in a quick turnaround and just get them in, let them ask whatever questions, let them vent however they need to vent and talk about their situation. Let's give them the tips and then let's get them back to where they want to be. Because most of them, in the back of their mind, I know I was like this. In the back of my mind, I always thought to myself, God, I got to get back and take care of grandma. I got to get back and take care of grandma. This is great. I'm taking care of myself, but I got to get back and take care of grandma. So we did it really quick. So this presentation is based off of what I've been teaching already for a couple years. It's caring for the caregiver. We've changed it a little bit to augment a little bit of the COVID-19 pandemic preparations and what we've taught in previous classes and how we care for dementia people with the COVID a pandemic around us. So we've changed a little bit just to make it fit. But you'll notice these tips and these recommendations, they really don't focus on COVID. They focus on us as caregivers and any situation. So it's a very generalized presentation on how we can give our best and be our best. Okay, so I'm going to get started with this. Did you guys mention about questions? I'm okay if you guys put something in the chat, and the moderators will be more than happy to bring up those questions. I'm not a real stickler for keeping all questions towards the end. If you think of something, tell me, let me know. I'll be more than happy to answer those questions during the presentation. Okay.
Thank you,
So here I am.
Adrian.
You got it, guys. Here I am. That's me. I already talked about myself. We don't need to talk about that guy. A cheesy smile. There's Crossroads. That's a private duty, non-medical home care agency that I run. And then my other company is Tender Care Home Health. That is actual medical home health care. Both companies, the Crossroads itself deals very much so with dementia and Alzheimer's patients, and the Tender Care Home Health deals with patients in general, just mostly the senior population. There's my grandma. That's who we were talking about earlier. She's the reason that I got into this line of work. That actually is my older sister. She actually is part of the company at Tender Care Home Health. She's the quality and compliance manager for home health. And I did a photo shoot at the house with my grandma while she was still alive, just to I can get some free housekeeping out of my sister. I was able to get her to come over and vacuum and do all this stuff for photo purposes, right? So here are some facts about family caregivers and what it is that we do as caregivers, nationally. So we provide 80% of community care. That's 80% of all care that's done is done by family caregivers. Okay, 70% of the caregivers just so happen to be women. That's no surprise to people in my industry. We see that most of the time we deal with the daughters or the sisters or the wives. It's not uncommon to see men caregiving, but it's just not as much. We provide roughly 46 hours of care per day, and that's just probably, in my opinion, the minimum. I know I was doing it 24 hours a day, and I feel a lot of you guys are doing it almost 24 hours a day. It's a nonstop job. 20% of us provide care for more than 4 years. That's the kicker with dementia. This disease process, it doesn't happen fast. Sometimes it can manifest really quickly in our loved ones, but for most purposes, it really drags itself out. Unlike other diseases that would play out in a relatively quicker fashion. So we're not necessarily burdened, but we're tasked with the responsibilities of taking care of our loved ones for quite a long time. It becomes who we are. It becomes our persona in a way. 30% of caregivers are employed, and a growing percentage also care for children. Okay, we call that the sandwich generation. Those are the folks who are caring for their loved ones at home, the dementia patient, but also caring for their children and making sure that they're off to school or getting good grades or making sure they're fed and healthy. So we're stretched. We're extremely, extremely stretched, this sandwich generation. So we got to figure out how to decompress a little bit. And typically only one family caregiver. Even in families that are large, multiple siblings, they really just choose one person who's taking up all the tasks of caring for the loved one. It can be a lot, right? Here's a little quote that I liked from Judith London. Caregivers are often the casualties, the hidden victims. No one really sees the sacrifices they make. It could feel like that, right? It can really feel how what we do, nobody notices, nobody quite cares, especially when we're dealing with dementia. Our loved ones may not even acknowledge the fact that we're helping them. In fact, they may even be antagonistic or combative. I mean, it makes it seem like they don't want to be helped, but this is what you have to do. You have to look out for their best interest. So it seems like nobody notices. Well, I'm here to tell you, and I can speak on behalf because I know so many wonderful people at the Alzheimer's Association feel the same way. We do notice you, okay? You're not a casualty. You're not a victim. We notice you. You're making the sacrifices that it takes to give the best quality of care to the best of your abilities for your loved ones, and we applaud you. And there's a reason why we do all this, okay? We do this because of you. We put on these presentations, we put on these boot camps back when everybody can congregate again, because we care about you. We really want you to get the tools you need to do the right job. So we're a little bit different, right? Compared to other caregivers, dementia caregivers have it a little bit harder, in my opinion, and factually. I mean, twice as many as like to have physical or psychological problems. More than twice as likely to use medication for mood or nerves, and that's not just medication. You can self-medicate with other coping mechanisms such as alcohol or drugs. It's not uncommon. We're at much higher risk of social isolation and economic distress. Now we're in a time with the pandemic that we're dealing with social isolation and economic stress, and that's not even dementia related. That is just life right now. So if you could just imagine how it is to be adding on to that isolation, adding on to that economic stress. We're already taking it a lot as it is, and only half of us are likely to use regular health care. So these are the symptoms of stress we're going to talk about, and you guys will probably nod your head. I'm not seeing you guys, but I'm sure you guys are going to be nodding your head, agreeing with this. We're a flower that is just wilting. We're losing our petals. When I was a young man, I was completely stressed. I was tired, and I would go out and try to get away anytime someone would stay with grandma. My coping mechanism, my symptom of stress was I'd go out a lot, and I'd try to get away, and it wasn't helpful. It wasn't healthy. It didn't make me stronger at this point. So that was my coping with stress. I was just a wilted flower, and I think a lot of us can feel that way. We show signs of anxiety, deep signs of depression. Oh my gosh, insomnia is probably the biggest thing that I've had to deal with as a caregiver, and I'm sure a lot of you are dealing with that as well. Some of us have dealt with denial of the situation, where we just, say everything's fine. I got it. Everything's fine, when everything really isn't fine. Lack of concentration, trying to be a sandwich generation caregiver, taking care of your loved one and your children at home. Can you focus on one thing? Are you a master of multitasking? Irritability. Do we lash out on occasion, over small details? I'm very guilty of having just the smallest, inconvenience happen to me, and then it ruins my day. I let it happen, and I need to not do that. So we'll talk about how we're not doing that, what we can do to not have that happen. Physical exhaustion. We're just tired. We lack energy. We don't have the strength to really put up much of a fight when stuff comes our way. health, physical, or emotional problems begin to appear for us as dementia caregivers. But there are ways to reduce the negative effects of stress. One thing with the denial of the situation, we just have to accept that our feelings are normal. Everyone who goes through this process and goes through the act of being a dementia caregiver, they're going through a lot. Dementia itself is such a scary disease process. It's such an unknown disease process. There's so little treatment for it. There really isn't that much going on as far as science is concerned, and we're fighting that every day when we start raising money through the walks or through the longest day. Those events go towards funding for research for this disease process, but it's still relatively underfunded compared to other disease processes that don't even have as high of a mortality rate. So it's okay to understand that, gosh, we just don't know it all. The old saying, we don't know what we don't know. Well, one of the beauties of having an Alzheimer's Association here in our towns is that we provide these free education so you can learn. There's people like Alexis who has the program side, and she's brilliant. She's taught us so much stuff just with her ability to hold a class and compassionately educate people who really, really want that. And that's what we do here. We want to make sure that our biggest armor, what protects us the most, is knowledge. The more knowledge you have on this disease process, the easier it is going to be able to handle it. Okay, it's not going to be easy by any means, but it's going to be less cumbersome. Okay, so we have to accept that we don't know anything about this disease process. We're trying to learn as much as possible, and the feelings of frustration and depression and isolation all are normal. These are part of the disease process when we're a caregiver, and we have to accept that. One way we can reduce negative stress is speaking about it with others, sharing your feelings with your family. I think that fixed that. Hope that helped, Alexis.
Yep, that looks good.
Okay, cool. So speaking with others and sharing your feelings with your family, oftentimes family just aren't available, or you may not have family in town close by, or you could be actually fighting with family, and you could be in a situation where your family just doesn't have your back or doesn't support you. I've seen it all. There's always friends you can speak with. And when all else fails, you can participate in a support group. There's so many support groups sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association, and lots of actual healthcare facilities have their own support groups where you can go and just talk about it, get it off your chest, tell people what you're feeling. A lot of them aren't going to understand. If they're not a dementia caregiver, they're not going to understand. They're going to be very oh wow, that's great. That stinks. They're not going to understand. They're going to give you platitudes as opposed to actual sage and advice. But that's why you have support groups who actually do understand where you're coming from, and people who are going through what you're going through. So what helps caregivers? What helps us during this time? Of course, adequate sleep, which I laugh at because a lot of us don't get adequate sleep. Proper exercise. I know several people who are caregivers that they stick with their exercise regime, and that's wonderful, and that helps them. Good nutrition with this time. Who has time to cook? So it's really hard to get good nutrition. Getting help with care responsibilities, getting other family to help, or family assisting with finances to hire help, like a caregiving agency. Social support and interaction. Going out there, working with those support groups, or reaching out to community resources. One thing I've learned in these entire years of working with dementia is that the more I give back, not just giving to my patients and clients with dementia, but the more I'm able to give back to the community, the better I feel. For example, giving a presentation such as this, being able to impart a little bit of knowledge and help some people out, it makes me feel great to be able to do this as a caregiver. Yourself, you can also do this. You can take the classes from the association, learn more, and then you become the teacher. You become the trainer, and pay it forward a little bit, you'd be surprised how wonderful that'll make you feel. You'll be coming from a place of authority, of wisdom and knowledge that not very many people have, and it feels good to give that knowledge away to people who need it the most. So when you think about all the stress we're going through, the added pressures of a pandemic, multiply that with dementia, symptoms manifesting in your loved ones, and it's hard to stay grounded. It's hard to be one with Earth instead of on this other plane where stress has just consumed your life. It's really hard. We are people of the Earth, and I don't look like a hippie, but I try not to sound like a hippie. But I believe in energy. I believe in the energy we exude is what we get back, And if our energy is chaos, we're going to continue to get chaos. So one way to ground yourself is to really focus on yourself for a long period of time, or even a short period of time if you're trying to do it quickly. It's easy to allow the stress to dictate your actions and how you react to things. It's super easy to just let the stress take over. Well, one thing we got to do is we can't let that stress take over. We can't let it keep us down, okay? We have to maintain a healthy mindset and stay grounded. There's a couple techniques to stay grounded. Physical and mental grounding can really help us navigate the stress of caregiving. This is a 3-step process that I learned working with several counselors and therapists here in Las Cruces. We kind of all agreed this is a real good, quick way to ground yourself, okay? The first way is you're going to do this. And we can try this right now in front of your monitor. If you fall asleep, it's okay. Just make sure your camera and your mute button's off so we don't hear snoring and see your head on the monitor. But you're going to start by releasing all physical tension. So you'll sit back in your chair. Put your arms on the armrest. I'm doing it here. I don't know if you guys can see it, but I'm doing it here. You're going to put your arms on your armrest, and you're going to release all physical tension. You start that by scrunching up your toes. We're going to start from the toes all the way up to the head, okay? You'll start by scrunching up your toes real tight, real tight, as tight as you can do it, and then you're going to release them. You'll follow that with the balls of your feet. You're going to scrunch up your balls of your feet really tight, and then you're going to release them. Follow that up to your calves, your other larger muscles. Tighten up your calves and release them. Next, you'll go to your thighs and your legs, and you're going to tighten those up and release them. You'll go up to your core, where your abdomen is, and you're going to really suck that in and tighten it up as hard as you can, and then release. All the while doing this, you're going to be breathing in and out rhythmically. From your core, you're going to go to your shoulders and your chest, and you're going to tighten that up, and then you release it. All the while breathing, maintaining a good flow of oxygen in and out. From your shoulders, you'll go to your arms, you tighten those up, eventually you release it, okay? From your arms, you go to your hands, make a fist, tighten that fist up real good, okay? Take a deep breath, and then release it. You'll go to your neck, and you just stretch out your neck a little bit, and you can tighten that up a bit. Maybe toss turn your head around a little bit, bop up and down, whatever you need to do. Release that tension in your head. Go ahead and release it. This is one way to just release that stress. We hold a lot of our stress in different muscles, regions of our body. We're going to hold them. I don't know if you can even tell the sound of my voice. Just doing this alone, I've already just kind of relaxed a little bit. I hope you guys did it at home as well. You were able to just relax a little bit. You'll feel your physical presence looser. Okay, this is how we're grounding ourselves. A lot of people also add the bonus of taking off your shoes to doing this. If you're at home, you go right ahead. Scrunch that carpet with your toes, or however you need to. If you need to do this outside and actually feel Mother Earth on your feet, you go right ahead. This process, this three-step process, will help you with grounding yourself. Okay. While doing this, okay, after you've grounded your body and you released all physical tension, you're now going to focus on your auxiliary senses. In doing this, you're going to focus on your visual, your hearing, and your sense of touch. So in doing this process, you can ground yourself even further. Just after releasing all physical tension is a good start. But let's go a little farther. So with your eyes closed, you're going to focus on your auxiliary senses. The first thing you're going to focus on is your hearing. It should get real quiet here in our homes. With this in mind, I'll give a little second. I want you to just focus on one thing you could hear in your house, whether that be the fan turning in the room, music playing in the background. If you're by a window, maybe the outside road sounds, the birds chirping. Just focus on that for just a sec. Next, we'll focus on the sensation of touch. With your hands by your side, if they're on their armrest or if your hands were on your legs, focus on what you're feeling with your fingertips. Do you feel the armrest of the chair? Is it a leather chair? Is it a cloth chair? Does it have a texture to it? Is it smooth? Is it cold? Focus on that for just a second. After you've done focusing on that, take a deep breath, inhale, and exhale. With this three-step process, you'll notice that your body is finally now getting in tune. It's not going to happen right away. It does take some practice. You can start with just releasing physical tension, the first part of the process. You start with that, get used to it. Teach yourself how to do that. When you're really starting to stress out, you have a second to yourself. Just release all your physical tension. Start with your toes, work all the way your major muscle groups out to the fingertips and your neck and your head. Okay? Try that first. After you've got that down, you notice that it starts to be beneficial to you. You actually feel physically less tense. Then now start focusing on the rest of the world. Focus on what you're hearing and what you can touch, or what you can see. You can add other things, your other senses. Focus on the world around you. When you're doing this, you're not focusing on the negative stress that's affecting you. You're not focusing on the negative things that are affecting the world. You're focusing on yourself, your entire body, your entire being. You're taking that deep breath, you're inhaling it, and you're exhaling it. It's almost a mantra, just to breathe it in and let it out. In comes the good, out goes the bad. It's a very unique way of making sure that you stay true to yourself, okay? Because if you're broken, you can't fix anybody. I'm sure you've heard that before. You have to make sure that you are ready for the rigors of dementia care in a time of a COVID pandemic. This is one three-step process in order to do that. So the most elusive thing for most of us is how to get some sleep. This is really, really tough. This is the thing that I've battled with the most as a caregiver, and I'm sure a lot of you guys are battling as well. When you're trying to get sleep, it's very difficult. A lot of us may be living with our dementia patient, our dementia loved one. If we're doing that, we're kind of light sleepers now. Anytime we hear them get up, we get up with them. If you use the trick of keeping a baby monitor in their room, you're just an earshot away. It's really difficult to get some sleep. But if you are able to sleep on your own and you have a chance to get a break and you want to take a nap or get some sleep, this is a surefire way to do it. Okay, this is a technique developed actually by the United States Navy. They developed this technique to help soldiers during a time of war, during the time of great stress, to actually let them fall asleep in pretty much any situation. If you know any veterans, you're fairly certain that you know that they can sleep anywhere. They could just lay down and go to bed. If it's in the middle of a forest on top of some rocks, they're asleep. If they're in the bed of a pickup truck, they're asleep. They can fall asleep pretty much anywhere. And that's because they're taught this technique and how to fall asleep. So let's try it out, okay? Here's how it's done. You're going to relax the muscles in your face, including your tongue, your jaw, and the muscle around your eyes. You do that similarly the way you do releasing the tension while you're grounding yourself. In fact, you're kind of, in essence, grounding yourself to fall asleep, okay? You're going to do that by, scrunching up your face and your eyes and your jaw, and you just move them up and, kind of just loosen it all up. Relax the muscles in your face. Followed by dropping your shoulders as far as down as you can go. Drop your shoulders as low as you can go, and your upper and lower arm one side at a time. Just let them loose, okay? With that, you're going to breathe out with a deep breath. You're going to relax your chest, followed by your legs, starting from the thighs and working down. So here we're working in reverse. Here we're letting the stress go from us out to the world, okay? And then with doing that, you're going to clear your mind. After you've gotten the physical preparation of trying to fall asleep, you're going to spend the next 10 seconds trying to clear your mind before thinking about one of the following three images, okay? And clearing your mind is extremely tough, especially for overthinkers or people with anxiety, people with depression, where our mind is always racing. So it's going to be tough, but it's something we have to try, okay? So spend the next 10 seconds trying to clear your mind after you've physically removed a lot of your stress. Think about this. Think about lying in a canoe on a calm lake with nothing but a clear blue sky above you. Try thinking about lying in a black velvet hammock in a pitch black room. Or you can simply say, don't think, don't think, don't think. Over and over and over for 10 seconds and just try to clear your mind. Once you've done those things, you should be able to fall asleep a little bit better. There is a couple techniques that I've learned in the past and I've actually implemented, and when I'm having a really hard time sleeping, I'll do the full list here. I'll release the tension and ground myself. I'll drop my shoulders, I'll breathe, I'll clear my mind, and I'll think of something else. If all else fails, I've always resorted to yoga breathing, holding your breath and exhaling your breath and breathing in a rhythmic pattern that induces sleep. Okay, there's several different variations of yoga breathing. A quick Google search, you find the one that suits you the best. I hold my breath for certain counts. I'll breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 10 seconds, and then exhale for 12 seconds. Keep doing that, and eventually you'll get to the point where you'll be able to clear your mind and then carry on with the rest of the sleeping suggestion that the Navy developed. Hopefully this helps. If you guys have any other ways other than drinking a fifth of vodka or taking a bunch of pills, if there's other ways, natural ways to help yourself sleep, I welcome all suggestions. I know there's everybody here in the chat would love to hear what you have to say as well. So if you have any ideas for how to sleep, please make your suggestion. Also, everybody's different. It's very common for Hispanic families to have loud music playing when you're a baby, so I could actually fall asleep with loud music going on in the room. Other people need it to be pitch black. Some people can sleep with daylight. It's different. Everything's different to you. This technique should help you in the way that you sleep the best. Okay. So now that we've addressed grounding ourselves and the most elusive thing, sleep, let's focus on other ways to reduce stress. Okay, these are just tips and techniques that were brought to us by the Alzheimer's Association and how we can reduce stress while we're dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's caregiving. Okay, mainly, like I've mentioned before, educate yourself about the disease. Take what you learn and educate other people around you. Inform your family, inform your neighbors, anybody who you ask for a little bit of assistance to maybe help watch your loved one while you try to get some stuff done. You know, educate them. Don't be afraid to over-educate. Tell everybody. Be the owner of this information. There's nothing proprietary about this. Take the information that you're taught, even in this presentation or presentations in the past, and own that information. Go to your friends and tell them, this is what I learned today. Would you like to know a little bit more? Because I learned so much. And educate everyone around you. The better you educated you are on the subject, the less scary it is. The less scary it is, the less stressful it is. It's a full process. So you really truly retain stuff you educate, or what I call mastery of education, when you can teach it. It's called the teach back method. So if you learn something here, for example, the grounding technique, teach it to your friend as soon as you get a chance, okay? Once you're able to go back and teach it and you become the teacher of this, you have mastered the content. Therefore, you're educated, you no longer fear it, okay? It doesn't give you stress anymore. Pay attention to your specific situation. Everybody is different, okay? After we've educated everyone, now we got to focus on ourselves. We watch our diet. We get as much food as we can eat that is healthy as possible. Drink fluids, plenty of fluids, stay hydrated. All these things that your doctor would tell you to do, maybe the last time you went to a doctor before you became a dementia caregiver, try to do that. Try to implement it. Because remember, you are the one who has to be good. You're the one that has to stay mentally straight and healthy and sound, and because your loved one can't. So you have to do it. So in order to do that, you make sure that you watch your diet, you get as much rest as possible, and you take times for yourself. Now, this is a little bit different because we're in a pandemic. We can't just run to go shopping. We can't just run to go to the movies or go out with friends and family. We're on societal shutdown at the moment, you know. So we have to be creative in the way we take times to ourselves. Personally, I sit in my backyard and I water my grass. I have a sprinkler system. It should go on every, other day at a certain time. I turned it off. In order for me to take time for myself and get away and just focus on me, I go outside and I water my grass by hand now. Let's get back to the basics, the things that made us or brought us joy before the pandemic. There's other things you can do, focusing on yourself, watching movies at home, the education process, educating yourself, watching videos on YouTube or at the Alzheimer's Association website. There's so many things you can do that don't require having to go out and be socially active that you can still enjoy, okay? This part of the presentation revolves around this word respite. What is respite? Well, the dictionary it's kind of a tough definition. It's a short period of rest or relief from a difficult or unpleasant time. Okay, I wouldn't say all caregiving is unpleasant, but it is difficult. Okay, so you need to get a break. You need a break. The example they use in the dictionary is the refugee encampments will provide some respite from the suffering. It's bleak. It's a very dark definition. But respite is actually a beautiful thing to enjoy. It's something that you can get from a lot of different places. You can ask family, friends, or caregivers to come by and offer you a little bit of a break. There's companies in the towns where we live. For example, here in Las Cruces, we have my agency, Crossroads In-Home Care. A very good friend of mine, Ashley, has Active Care, responsive in-home care. There's state-funded services through Medicaid programs that help give a little bit of a break. There's adult daycare facilities in town. There's private caregivers that you could actually, pay to come by and help you out. There's actually a program through the Alzheimer's Association called respite reimbursement. the more people who actually take advantage of that program, it'd be nice because then we could probably apply for more funds in the future. So I would love for everybody to apply for those respite reimbursement programs. All you need with that is a simple diagnosis from a physician saying that your loved one is suffering from dementia. It doesn't have to be Alzheimer's, it can be any type of the many dementias that fall under the dementia umbrella. With
Thank you,
that,
Adrian.
uh-huh.
I wanted to just chime in just for a second. If anyone has any questions about the reimbursement program, I will go ahead and drop my email into the chat box, and I would be happy to send anyone any information about the respite program and the application as well, so you can look that over.
Fantastic. That's great. And if you could remind us, Alexis, I know that the numbers change from time to time. So can you remind us what the reimbursements are currently?
The current reimbursement is up to $700 and then $1,000 for emergency reimbursement.
So the 1,000 is a one-time emergency reimbursement, correct?
Yes, and that could be used towards, if you have a family member who either passed away or they have surgery and they need some assistance right away, we offer that as well.
Okay. And the 700 can be applied for annually, correct?
Yes.
Yes. So that $700 that you can apply for on an annual basis, it changes, right? It used to be 500 and it went 600. Now it's 700. That can be used for paying a private caregiver, paying a family member. They don't even have to be a registered, certified nurse's aide or anything like that, or paying a private duty service like Crossroads or Active Care. Any one of these companies, I'm sure if you give them a call, they'll be more than willing to work with you on prices to get you as much respite as you need within that allotted amount of funds, that $700. So there is a hand reaching out to you there in that case. I always like to tell my clients, you're never really stuck between a rock and a hard place. There's always someone willing to lend a hand and reach out and help you out. This respite reimbursement program through the Alzheimer's Association is a clear example that there is always something we can do to help out. Thanks, Alexis. So these are some of the programs that we have together with the Alzheimer's Association and how it can help you during this difficult time. Of course, our core programs are the education, early stage engagement, support groups, the safety programs, the respite reimbursement program we just talked about, information and referral. If you don't have any help, you can always call them and they can send you to places you might need. A helpline and care consultation just to see if you're on the right track. So never be afraid to reach out for the kind of help that the Alzheimer's Association is willing to provide, all at no cost to you. Here's some additional resources for the Alzheimer's Association, the 24-hour hotline, the 1-800 number. I'll leave that there for a sec just to see if you guys want to write it down, but I'm sure it's on the website. You can probably access all this information real easily. It's in both in English and in Spanish. And the website, the alz.org/New Mexico, you'll find information on classes, support groups, and events in your area. Keep in mind, classes are now online because of the pandemic, but with a lot of good faith, we'll have classes and support groups and social settings here again in the very near future. If you're in the medical fields and you're actually a healthcare worker and first responder, there's a phone line, support line for yourself as well. Facing challenges at work due to the COVID-19 pandemic is stressful. So this is something that I provided for all of my caregivers. If they wanted to talk about their feelings of stress, their fear and anxiety, the sadness or depression during work, they can sure do that. If they're concerned about a family member or a colleague or friend, they can call this number and talk about it. Professional counselors are there to help 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. It's free, it's confidential, and just getting that stress off your chest of being able to talk about the situation with someone who's understanding and trained in how to talk about this can really be beneficial to a healthcare worker or first responder. So with that being said, this time is now reserved for questions. I hope I was able to impart a lot of information to you all and get you guys a couple of tips and techniques that you might not have used before, and hopefully they work. This time is reserved for questions, so if you have any questions on anything that we discussed today or any other questions regarding dementia, Alzheimer's care, or private duty medical services and non-medical services, by all means, give me a question.
At this time, if you guys have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat box. I'll give everyone just a moment. In the meantime, I just want to thank Adrian for being on with us today. It was a lot of great information, and I hope that this kind of alleviates any stress that anyone may be having with everything going on. But I'm just going to leave it up to the expert like Adrian, who really gave us a lot of great tips and tricks that could be useful for us during this time.
Thank you, Alexis. If there's no questions, you have about 15 to 16 minutes allotted just for yourself. I'm sure you gave yourself an hour break to do this. Use those 15 minutes. Get out there, ground yourself. Find one thing that you can do relatively quick that'll reduce a lot of stress for you real quick. I won't keep you much longer because I want you to take those few moments to yourself. But thank you for joining me today. Thank you for Alexis and everyone for helping me put this on. Denise, thank you guys so much. You guys have been a great help, and I'm always available for questions in the future. My contact information should be along with the following, or Alexis will have the contact information to give to everyone. So thank you guys very much.
Thank you, Adrian. I do have a couple of questions.
Sure.
One regarding the requirements for the diagnosis regarding the respite reimbursement program. So it would just be a doctor's note, and we would just the second thing that we would need as far as that application is making sure that the caregiver and their loved one live in the same home. And usually that requires a letter of some sorts, a mailing of any type that you can use towards that application. Any questions about that application, feel free to email me. We have another question. Is there any benefit in trying some of the techniques with our loved ones, assuming that they are able to follow along?
Can you ask me that again? Is there trying the grounding techniques to relax them?
Just some of the techniques that you mentioned from the presentation.
Oh, definitely. If they are able to follow along, there's no problem with trying it. Seeing how long it lasts is another story. How often you might have to re-guide them to doing it. But if it doesn't cause you too much frustration to do that, then go right ahead. Give it a shot. There's other tips and techniques to reduce the stress of the actual dementia patient themselves. The loved ones who are kind of going through a rough patch right now. I know a lot of facilities here in town, and I recommend it for my clients at Crossroads. Actually using aromatherapy is one thing. Dimming the lights in the house, closing blinds, making a calm, relaxed environment, candlelight, soft music, stuff like that. Those are all ways to calm someone down who is a little bit overactive and it's causing you extra stress. If you need them to calm down with you, then you can kind of use the same techniques yourself. Use the light, the lower light and the candle light and the music. Hopefully that kind of calms down the entire area if they're not responsive to the grounding techniques.
Thank you, Adrian. We also have another comment. Just wanted to mention another resource, and this is coming from Pam. There's a resource, the New Mexico Crisis and Access Line. In the chat, she included a link to that. So if anyone is interested, feel free to hop on there and get to that link if you need additional resources. And then Helen asked, are there support groups meeting online? Helen, yes, there is. We do have a couple that have merged onto virtual support group meetings. So I would be happy to, even if you want to email me, I would be happy to send that over to you, and you can get a list of which groups are currently meeting online, and then we can get you access to that as well.
Those are great comments and questions, everyone. I'm really glad you guys are taking the time to ask those questions. That means you guys are taking the first step to self-care, is, finding answers to your problems. And this is really great. You guys are awesome. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, everyone. If there are no further questions, we're going to go ahead and end it here. But of course, you could always reach out to myself and the Alzheimer's Association. As Adrian mentioned, there is a 1-800 helpline, and that's 24/7. That's 1-800-272 8900, I believe. Sorry, I have that wrong. But if you have any questions for Adrian as well, you're more than welcome to reach out to him as well. But with that, I just want